everybody. I usually say happy baby Friday, but today is Friday, April Fool's Day, but no April Fools here, right, ladies?
Right.
We're fools every day.
I
Think
am
about that
very, I am very, very happy to have all of these ladies here with us today, and we're going to be giving out some thoughts and advice. And if you would like some, please go ahead and ask your questions in the post. I have a couple little conversation starters that I'm going to throw up that go through how things are happening and what kind of questions we have. And then we will take everybody else's questions as they come up and pop up to take us through the time we have today. So I have the lovely Miss Ruby Woodward here with me, along with the lovely also Miss Brenda Edwards and the gorgeous Miss Sharon Oliver, who put her lips on for y'all today. And then the fabulous Miss Chandra Stephenson also. So I'm real pleased to have these ladies with us. And we all have been, I used to say old timers, but that sounded a little, I don't know. Somebody was just like, well, I don't, you could say mature. I'm like, well, all right, so then I added the old hens instead, because I figured nobody could get too bent out of shape with that. And all of us ladies are pretty thick skinned. So it seemed to kind of fit us, right?
Yeah.
So, Ruby, you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself and how you got into what you're doing?
Yep. Well, I'm first of all glad that you didn't say mature whenever you talked about what we are, because unfortunately, I don't think I'm probably that. I still kind of live in my childhood because it's a lot more fun. So I've been doing this. I just realized today for 47 years, I have been working in the healthcare arena full time, not part time. I took 2 weeks off when I had my child by cesarean section. And I took a week off when I moved from one place to another. So, not a lot of time out. I started out as a nurse. So those people, there's been a lot of people out there that have had questions on, hey, anybody out there been a nurse and transitioned into coding? I am one of those. I transitioned into coding by acquiring it, which I think a lot of people kind of tend to do. They start out in the back office, receptionist, other things along those lines. I again started out as a nurse, so I had kind of a good bump into everything. And when I went into my first office position, they told us that we were going to code. Now, sometimes nurses are a little arrogant, and so it was kind of like, how hard can that be? Boy, did I learn very quickly how hard that can be, because the books that we use don't speak the language that the clinicians speak. And I think we need to start to realize that when we're working with our clinicians. This was back in right after the horse and buggy days. The electric cars were, they weren't cranking the cars yet. So all those times. So we didn't have E&M leveling at the time. The doc said, this is how much I'm going to do. So I didn't have to deal with that, thank God. But we did the surgery coding and we did the diagnosis coding. Every time I went to look up a diagnosis code, I had to go someplace else. And I got so tired of going someplace else that I literally read the entire ICD-9 book. Okay, I'm a little geeky, so that's okay. And I also read the guidelines to come to learn, as I had been in the profession for a while, that people didn't even realize that the guidelines that were in the book were, one, there, and two, were a year behind. And then I created kind of my own book, but I wasn't smart enough at the time to publish it. Since that time, I have, as I then moved from, I was at the time in my beautiful, lovely, wonderful heart state of Pennsylvania. And I moved to Wyoming because I met this guy on an airplane, and we decided that we were maybe going to think about getting married. So I moved to Wyoming, and I used what I had been doing in Pennsylvania from the standpoint of, I am a nurse, but look what else I can do for you, to that group. And so I did their coding and the nursing duties as well. My office nursing duties were a little different than most as well, because I also went to the hospital and saw patients. And then when he decided that he was going to change jobs and work for the airlines, then I moved to the frozen tundra of Minnesota. And I did the same thing. I promoted the fact that meanwhile, you have to understand, I really, knowing what I know now, really didn't know a whole heck of a lot, but I promoted the fact that I knew things and said, these are the things that I can do. You, doctor, no longer have to take your time doing the coding. I can do this for you because I understand what you're talking about. Since that time, I really grew into loving coding, loving the challenges that it did, the fact that you might have come into work that day planning on this is what I'm going to do, and by the end of the day, you might not have started a single one of those things. The variabilities, the grayness that exists in a lot of what we do, all of that has been fabulous to me, to the point that in the early 2000s, I actually, quote, retired from nursing and left and went strictly into the business side of medicine. And I have loved it ever since.
Great.
Okay.
Sorry, my special guest has arrived. We weren't sure if she was going to be able to make it or not, so I didn't put her out there totally. But Ms. Rita Genovese is here. Hey, Rita.
Hi, everybody.
Rita.
Hey. So glad I
Good
could
to
make
see ya.
it.
Oh, so glad you could make it. Missed you all so much. Yes. All right. Well, thank you. So we're just I'm having everybody give a little introduction on themselves for our audience. So Brenda, you're up next.
All right. Well, Ruby, you're 10 years ahead of me. I just did the math, and I've been doing this 37 years. And I don't know how, because, mentally I'm still in my 20s. But look at Sharon. Get Jerry's fingers and start counting. So I fell into this accidentally. This is back when we had typewriters before computers. The practice my mom managed, one of the physicians died in a plane accident, and I typed envelopes of the letters telling the patients that he was no longer available. And that led to, hey, we need someone to fill in this role, in this role, in this role. So totally self-taught. I was the biggest anti-credential person because, like Ruby, I was self-taught. I learned, literally the book was handed to me. Here, you're the coder. Oh, okay. I didn't even know there were guidelines in these dang books for a long time. But so I kind of worked my way through the business office. Then I worked in a billing office. In the early days of MRIs, when a physician called and said, I need to talk about MRI, I'm not sure I know that patient. Just the craziness that we went through those early days. But, when we had to handwrite HCFAs and stuff statements and hand-pick statements.
Hand-signed encounter form. Hand-signed in the 1500s. Yeah.
Yep, with your initials, because you weren't the physician. So, yeah, I went through all those days. I ended up from Illinois to Louisiana to, where did we move after that? Wisconsin, and then I landed in Kansas. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but, there's a lot of life lessons you learn through the process of doing this. I did finally embrace being credentialed and became an instructor, which is how I think we are all instructors, aren't we? Mm-hmm. So that was very opening for my growth potential. Didn't plan to leave the company I worked at for 16 years. They eliminated our department and I moved on. That company abruptly closed during COVID. So now we have a brand new company that we're doing the same thing we've always done. But I hope we talk about remote and how do we do what we do, because those are things that are near and dear to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a new grandma.
Oh, congrats. Yay. All right,
Okay.
Miss Rita.
Oh. So hello, my beautiful friends and everyone out there. I'm so excited I was able to be part of this discussion today. So I kind of fell into this career as well, but my career took a little bit of a different trajectory. So I graduated from college and thought I was going to land in international business and, live on the French Riviera at some point. But it didn't work out that way. So I graduated from college and needed a job. And my primary care physician said, I need somebody to help. So I went to work there and I did everything. I took blood pressures. I gave I did EKGs, front desk, scheduled, and then did the billing and coding right at that point, but really didn't know it was billing and coding because it was so long ago, because I've been in this for over 30 years. And I would say, yes, I do not look a day over 21, but yes, it's been in this for 30 years. So what happened was, you know, I used to write the HICVAs out, the physical cash deposits at the bank, you know, all the stuff that we used to do manually. And then, you know, I had worked there for a long time and just thought about, well, let me try something else. And I went and started going into a different arena. I went into orthopedics for a long time. I know that's, you know, Ruby's thing. So I worked in orthopedics for a long time, and I was Ms. Knee Bone, you know, Ms. Bones, and loved it and got certified while I was there. I didn't know anything about the AAPC until I was there, and I started looking things up on the internet and just kind of started gliding in there, and, you know, took my exam and passed, and I couldn't believe I passed when I got, you know, back then you had to wait for that envelope.
6 weeks.
Yeah, and if you got the CPC, you knew you passed because the CPC was at the end of your name. So I was like, because I thought I totally bombed it. And back in the days, I don't know if the ladies before me spoke about, you had to pass every section. So if you didn't pass every section, you didn't get your CPC. So then I started my career in management and started managing and moving up the ladder in that way, becoming to where I am today as a director, and, you know, working in primary care for a long time. And, you know, my ultimate mission in life is hematology oncology, for those of you that know me. So cancer is my life, and I've been in cancer for a long time, and I'm a director. So I oversee business operations and revenue. So finance, revenue cycle from start to finish, coding, financial counseling, authorizations, medical records, call center, and the surgical schedules and administrative assistants. So I could tell you it's been a wild ride. I never thought I would be doing what I am today when I graduated college, but I wouldn't change a thing. I love what I do every single day. I love helping patients, love being part of this team, being part of the AAPC as well. You know, it's done so much for my life. And, you know, just really the purpose that we network with each other and know how to connect for so many different things. And you know who to call for that question to get answered, and how, you know, over the years in our field, how we've actually helped each other through a lot of things. And that's just so unique about who we are as coders at the base of all this. You know, and like I said, I'm married. I have one son. Everybody knows he was the AAPC mascot for a long time. You know, 20 years old. I can't believe it. I'm old, and enjoying life.
Great. And Miss Sharon, everybody saw you.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody saw you.
Doing what?
Throwing a bottle?
Throwing it down. He's over there snoring like crazy.
All right. And I just wanted to add in before Sharon starts, Rita, when you're talking
so
about, and
tired.
Brenda too, I was at office, we had pegboard. You know, and so you used to come off of the day, you'd have your fingers would be black and your arm if you rested on something. And so, those were fun days. All right, Sharon,
So
now
my
it's your
life
turn.
started in, I went into the medical field at 17 years old in 1964. My son was 3 weeks old. He is now, I think, 58 years old. So, did a few years. Jerry was over in Germany. He had just joined the Army after high school, went overseas. And I followed him. My son and father had not seen each other till our son was 19 months old before he and his daddy ever laid eyes on each other. So after 22 years, we came back and we moved to Washington, D.C. from Georgia, Fort Stewart, Georgia. And so I went to work for the Pentagon for a little bit, and I thought, oh my God, get me out of here. These people only talking K's or acronyms. That's all they talk about. 50K, 500K, whatever. And and I didn't have Google back then to look up as to what K meant. So I just kept my ears open until I caught on to what they were saying. But howsoever, I went into applied for a family practice position, acted like I knew what I was doing, and got the job. What can I say? So I was 13 years family practice. I was there in 1986 is when I started. And so I was there before managed care. And
Is that
I
Gary
told
snoring?
Ara, maybe I won't talk. I'll just go on.
I'm sorry. I thought it's like, what is that? I'm like,
He's so tired. Let me move to another. Come on to Chandra. I'll just say hello to everybody, and I'll just mute myself.
Okay,
I love y'all.
I'm not quite sure how I follow that.
You can't even make this stuff up.
No, we can't. I love it. So, all right. So as we were joking earlier, I guess technically I'm the young chick out of this group, and that's saying something because I'm not as young as I once was. I've only been in healthcare for 20 years, so I'm not quite there yet. But respectable tenure, right? Respectable. So how did I wind up in healthcare? I have all of the women in my family, on my mother's side of the family, you are either a school teacher or you are an accountant. Like that's what you do. Those were kind of your two paths. So my working through college, all of that, I had positions in an accounting department, budgeting, forecasting, doing anything from that perspective, and started as an admin. Well, I knew I went into college as a physical therapy major. And I knew I wanted to wind up in healthcare. Of course, they made it a master's program my second semester in, so I couldn't qualify. I got booted back out to general studies and bumped around a little bit. But I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. At the time, I didn't have the stomach to be a nurse. It's kind of funny how those things change. Now I could kick myself for not going to nursing school, but I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. So I applied as, I think I was a senior admin or something in a billing office. Here, I live in Indiana, in one of the largest hospital systems here, and I got the position. And I started working for a director who had never had an assistant before, so he couldn't keep me busy. So I very quickly worked for 2 directors, and then I worked for 2 directors and 3 managers, and then I worked for 2 directors, 3 managers, and 8 supervisors. And eventually it got to just put her wherever somebody calls in sick today. She'll figure it out. Just stick her there. And that was huge for me because I got to learn how we train and educate new hires. I got to learn how we post cash. I got to work all of the return addresses. I got to work across all of the different areas. And out of all of them, I really kind of was intrigued by this whole coding thing. The coding manager sat right next to our director, so she leveraged me quite a bit, and I got to talk to her and started to really embrace and understand and do more work with her in her areas. And I had the opportunity to transition out of the billing office and into one of our family practice clinics. So I moved out to a family practice clinic with 2 docs. I lovingly refer to as Dr. Night and Dr. Day. One male, one female, one Jewish, one Catholic, one, like, go down the list, and you had polar opposites. And that was one of the best experiences. You know, I got to actually see how an office operated. And Brenda, to your point, one day our coder, who really wasn't a coder, was a charge entry person, walked out in the middle of the day, and it took people 2 hours to figure out that she had left. Not that we didn't know she was there. It was just every time you asked, like, where is she? Oh, she's in the bathroom. I'm like, do we need to call somebody? Is she gonna be okay? Like, she's been gone a really long time. And finally they looked at her desk and all of her personal items were gone. And they're like, I don't think she's coming back. Okay, you sit here now. Here's a coding book because this one doctor will only write her diagnosis descriptions on her charge ticket. I didn't know anything about the guidelines. I didn't know how to appropriately use this. Now, obviously, I learned really, really quickly. I was young and dumb, and at that point, I wanted to get out of Indiana, and I managed to for a little over a year. I headed south to Atlanta, Georgia, and between my move from Indy to Atlanta, I stopped in Nashville and took a 1-week boot camp. Betty was not my instructor, but was working for the company at the time. And I did my boot camp, but I never took my exam. And I headed on down to Atlanta, got a job running the billing office and front office for a solo practice cardiologist. So I jumped in the deep end of the pool. was down there about a year, and some family circumstances brought me back to Indiana. And it was funny because I applied at the hospital that I had worked at previously, and the physician that oversaw the compliance auditors saw my name apply. And he's like, I want to talk to her. I applied at like 11 o'clock on a Thursday night, and 9 o'clock the next morning, got a phone call from the woman in HR who I had known for years. And she's like, we want to know if this is the same person we think it is. I'm like, how many people have my name? Really? Come on. So she brought me in for an interview with him, and I explained, he goes, I just have a lot of questions. He goes, but you were always the go-to person. If you didn't know what the answer was, you were going to find it. And I worked, like I said, I worked in that billing office. I was all over the place. So he gave me the opportunity to work for him, but he hired me in September and told me I had until the end of the year to get my coding certification. And to your point, back then, you had to wait 6 weeks to get your results. Christmas Eve. That was the best Christmas of my life. I got that certification, and those who know me know that he pushed me on education. He told me I should strive to have more letters after my name than are in my full name, and Mom didn't slack on the full name. I did. And I got a little addicted because the first year I took 1, the second year I got 2, the third year I got 3, the fourth year I got 4, and then I went, oh, I'm nuts. I got to stop a minute. So I very much slowed down after that point, believe it or not. But I had the benefit of working for him for 6.5 years, and he absolutely changed the way my mind worked and how I understood things, and very much reminded me never to be afraid to ask a question. Never be afraid to show that you're willing to learn something new. And when I did finally move on from him, that was about a decade ago, I moved into the consulting space, and I've been a little bit of everywhere. I've spent a lot of time with these wonderful ladies as an instructor, during the I-10 era. I've had the benefit and the privilege of getting to meet so many amazing people through my coding connections and using the networking opportunities made available.
Well, Chandra, the reason you don't have any more credentials is there's none else to get.
Yeah.
You're all
And actually, I got my latest one in December. So I stopped.
And for everybody that's watching that didn't realize why we all lost it about 5 minutes ago was Sharon's husband, Jerry. He's a wonderful gentleman, but he was snoring in the background, and I, as Sharon was talking, I was like, "What is that noise?" And then I realized it was Jerry snoring. So that's why we all kind of like lost it for a minute. So I apologize for that, but when you do live broadcasts, that's what happens.
I apologize. That's the life I live. That's what it is. Like in Zoom, you're in the other person's home, so you get to hear the dogs and the cats and everything. So,
and just
one thing I want to bring up that
I'm sorry,
Betty was my thing when I got my PMCC license, when you went through the 3 days thing. But I didn't realize it till a few years later that it was her that was my instructor person that graded me. And I about fell over. But I tell you, being on with the local chapter board of directors and being involved in the local chapter, that's what got me here. And I didn't know a soul before I did that. And it's just made all the world a difference in the world.
Well, none of us would know each other.
No.
None of us would know each other had we not made connections and stepped up at AAPC, serving on local chapter stuff and I-10 trainings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sharon. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, I won't say anything.
I think it was me.
Oh,
sorry, Betty. The only thing I was going to add was what's funny is that physician who was like integral for me Betty taught his CPC course, and she was 8.5 months pregnant with Tori at the time. And he's like, I kept telling her she couldn't have that baby that day. She just had to get through my course first.
Well, she was nursing Tori whenever I met her.
Not like fully in front of everybody, y'all.
No. She was very. She went to her room and did it, and then come back down.
Yes. Okay. Let's just,
And then when I got on the IT training team, she was in charge of sending us everywhere.
Yep.
And the first place I went was Anchorage, Alaska. And I called her and I said, I think you've made a mistake. I did.
I never got any of those gigs.
Oh, I got somewhere up northern Maine in like January in a little bitty white roller skate of a car, and I was like, who did I make mad? Like,
well, okay, y'all. I got stuck in Boston for a full week, snowed into a hotel that didn't have a restaurant.
I got Kansas City boot camp. Same thing.
Yes. We'll get to those little love stories in a second. So I have a kind of just some throw out statements, questions that I've been getting. And as I said, for everybody that's watching, if y'all have questions that you would like to throw out to the ladies, please go ahead and put them in. But some of the comments so far have been, Pam is saying she feels like she saw a few of y'all earlier in the week, which I'm sure she did, right? And then we have Jennifer McNamara that is saying, hey, Sharon, glad to see you again. I believe you did were you doing Teach the Teacher too? Or I know Ruby did, but were you doing that too? Okay. So yes, she's saying, hey. A lot of people saying hello. And Brenda, your story was amazing. And I
just found the comments because I'm like, where are you seeing all this?
Oh yeah, you can't see the comments there. And Pam also said she remembers signing the 1500s too. And Melissa says all of her friends are here. Hello, lovely ladies. A lot of thanks for sharing. Guadalupe says she had the same situation as Chandra. The biller at her office quit, so the doctor told her to give it a try, and that's how she got started. Some people calling in from Tennessee. Somebody wants to know if you're still in Atlanta. I guess that's to Chandra. And
no, I'm back in Indiana.
You're back in Indiana, right? Okay.
Yep.
And then Pam also said certification is addicting. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
That's why I say that all of us were certifiable. That's the whole point, right? Yeah.
And then Judy says she loves serving on the local chapter here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She's been the treasurer for 3 years, and now she's the chapter president. Well, congrats, Judy. That's good. All right, so let me bring up our first, as one of the things we've been talking about already. Do I need multiple certifications? I always tell people, I'll put what I tell people, and y'all can, it depends on what you want to do. Mm-hmm. You know, I think if when I started, I have, I think 8, I don't know, I just don't count anymore, you know, but as being a consultant and having my own business, I wanted to make sure that, you know, depending on what market or what type of practice I was going into, that, you know, they would feel comfortable with what I knew and that kind of thing. And so, you know, and it just kind of seemed like when I wanted to audit the CPMA, you know, the documentation improvement, the different, you know, so they just kind of seemed to stack and fit. But as far as need, you know, if I didn't have my company and was working for a practice kind of thing, it would probably just be driven by what they required or what I wanted to do. So that's my thought on it. Yeah, Sharon.
Well, I tell, when people ask me, well, what do I do now? And I tell them, I said, look at where you are, but where do you want to be 5 years from now? What is your future? Don't live today, okay? And then prepare for what you want to be. And so that's where I go with it.
Brenda?
So my thought is, if it piques your interest, if it's going to benefit you, you have to do it for yourself, not for anybody else. So Chandra had a lot of curiosity to pique. So
so I'm going to add to that, Brenda.
Okay.
Remember what I was told early on, and what I'll tell anybody that listens to it. Exams, like our certification exams, are not designed to prove what you know. They're designed to expose what it is you don't know.
Yes.
And when you think about that, like every time I take a test, when you come out, what sticks? What you didn't know.
You didn't know.
Right? What you know you probably got wrong, or man, I'm gonna go home and look that up because I don't know. And I just figured the more exams I took, the more I had an idea of what I didn't know. And I was a little better in a better direction.
That's a great perspective.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I call it the V8 moment.
Exactly.
Rita?
So my career has like been different, I think, than most people, right? So for me, it was the leadership trajectory, right? The management trajectory. So yeah, I had 2 certifications. At 54, I went back for my master's degree, almost done, can't believe it, because I wanted to move up, to be a VP. So to be a VP in any academic center, you have to have that master's degree. Doesn't matter, I have 30 years of experience doing what I do. So I went back and said it was for me, though, because I had always said I wanted to do it. And like many of us, life gets in the way, right? You get married, you have children, you have sick parents. So at that point, my son had started college, and he said to me, now there's no reason to say you can't do it. And he was right. So went back and did it, the driving force. But now I have studied for 3 certifications. So now when I finish my master's, I can take my 3 certifications that I've been working on for so long. But I think it's really like everybody said, it's what you want to do in life. Where do you want to go? No one ever said to me I had to get my CPC. I wanted to do it because I was so intrigued by it. And knowing that if I was in this coding world, and when I got that CPC, there was only 4 certifications back then. Yeah. So, I started to think about that and said, hey, this is something that I'm going to be able to prove when I'm overseeing a revenue cycle department, that I know what I'm talking about. And I think that that's another thing, right? It's like, I know I am satisfied with what I know because I was able to pass that really difficult exam and be able to get that certification and be really proud of it. So I think it's really what everybody's saying, like Sharon said, where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, what do you want to do? And then go from there. So for me, yeah, I love my coding world. I still code every day, believe it or not as much as I used to, but I do every day. I'm in there. But a lot of what I do is management and leadership, which has been my passion as well. So I think it's really what you want to be when you grow up. I'm still trying to find that, but
I'm still trying to grow up.
I was 56 when I got my CPC, and it's because, and the reason I got it is Jerry called me up, and it was after 9/11 type of thing, and said, I'm retiring. He was working federal government then. And I said, well, where are we going? Military wife, that's the only thing you ask. Well, where are we going? Don't ask why. And he said, we're going to Tennessee. And I said, well, then I have to get my CPC. And he said, well, what's that? And I said, I have to prove that I know what I'm talking about when I get to the new location.
Yeah.
And that's why. Now, if I was still in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have felt the need to do it.
Yeah.
You have to have a need as well as for yourself and all. And so that's why I got mine at 56 years old. So that's been 20 years ago. Hi.
Ruby, do you have anything to add on that question?
Oh, yeah, I can give you a lot. I actually initially got certified because the coders in my organization that went to coding school didn't think that I should be coding because I didn't go to coding school. So I learned about AAPC and AHIMA, and you don't say that I can't do anything. So I went and sat for both certifications, and I became the only certified coder in the organization. They no longer had anything to be able to say about that. So I since dropped my AHIMA certification for many different reasons. And then I really only had my CPC for quite a while. Back in those days, we didn't have all of these wonderful webinars that we could attend to get our CEUs. Our CEUs were going to the national conference
Yeah.
or attending
Yep.
chapter meetings. Well, I'm a nurse. I can't be at a chapter meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm sorry. I'm still seeing patients. So, I wasn't able to maintain my certification, and I ended up having to drop it and then retake it. And we won't talk about that. When I retook it, I kind of got a 98. So I guess I knew what I was talking about. Um, then the orthopedic certification came out. I said, sign me up. And I was there. And then the foot and ankle certification came, and I said, I'll be there, and did that one because those are two things that I very much love. And I did those for myself. My organization actually said, why do you need these certifications? Well, let's see. I work for an orthopedic group. I work for a foot and ankle doctor. And so if I want them to trust the information that I am giving to them, I want to be able to prove that. I then got my CPMA because I wanted, like a lot of people, to be able to expand, to be able to audit, to be able to do things looking at my future. And then I got my CPB, and I actually did that because I said, I've been working with the revenue cycle people for a really long time, dealing with different aspects of it, not truly in the revenue cycle piece. Like, I can't do some of those fancy things that you guys do, but I can do a lot of other things that help you. And so I said, I want to see if I know what I think I know. So I sat for that exam to be able to do that. And then then I went in, I left my beloved orthopedics and I went into radiology. So I needed to get certified in radiology if I was going to do that. And my AAPC certifications made me successful in getting my radiology certifications. I didn't code radiology. I was their go-to person. So here's this person that has not a clue about radiology, but she knows a whole lot of stuff about coding. And sat for the exam and did it at one of those, offsite places that they don't know what you're talking about and make you turn your pockets inside out and all those things. And then, couldn't bring your own pencil, can't bring anything to drink or eat, and you're sitting in a cubicle with your books and everything like this, trying to click the things on the computer to take your exam. And I was done in an hour early for the exam, and I thought, oh my, I better go look at all of these again.
I know that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah,
When you
it
finish
is.
like early, and you're just like, oh, I don't know, that could be
Yeah.
good or that could be really bad.
But the reason behind that is because what I learned early on by one, partially being self-taught and having to learn from the back end forward, as well as learning the things that you had to learn from your other certifications, from your participation in the organization. How do I approach these things? How do I look at things and read them and figure them out? And that's how I was successful. And then I got my last certification a year ago because I'm very much documentation oriented. I'm a nurse. I was a documentation oriented during the course of my nursing. And so I got my CDEO, and I'm attempting to get my CPCO, but I seem to speak to chapters too much, so I never get time to study.
I can relate. So I have to tell you a story about Chandra. It just popped into my head. And I might be mixing the certifications up, but Chandra thought this was really a funny thing to tell me, was that she was going in for her she wanted to take her certification in OBGYN.
I wanted HEMONC.
HEMONC. She wanted to take the HEMONC exam, and then she ended up taking the OBGYN exam instead, without studying, and passed. So she thought that was really funny because I'm HEMONC driven, and she's like, "Yeah, Ree, how about this? I went in and it was the wrong exam. When I passed, I was like, only you could do that.
Only you would take 4 tests in 1 year.
Well, she took 2 tests in 1 day.
That's what I was going to say, Sharon. I've taken 2 AAPC exams in 1 day.
Yeah, and passed.
You're not right. You're not right.
Well, it was funny because it was back when they relaunched the specialty exams.
Yeah.
And they did them at the regional conferences, and there was one here in Indianapolis. And you could come down and take one of the exams. And the physician that we worked for, there were 4 of us in the department. He gave each one of us an exam to take. And I think I wound up with internal med is what he wanted me to take. And I took it, and I was done in like an hour and 45 minutes. And I went to turn it in, and I'll never forget because it was Chris Taylor that I handed my exam to. And I said, "Can I take another one?" And she went, "What?" And I'm like, "I've got like I've got more than 3 hours left. Can I take another one?" And she goes, because there's all these piles of boxes behind them, right? And she goes, "Do you know what you want to take?" I'm like, "That was internal med. Family practice can't be that different. Go ahead and give it to me." And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, and I did. And that was how that went.
Such an overachiever.
Yes, Ruby, I know. I'm not playing
up.
Yeah, but if you know Chandra, you know that none of it has gone to her head. Her feet are flat on the ground, just like the rest of us. And that's where I think you can make a mistake is by thinking you know more than you do, because none of us know it all. So there's always going to be a study factor, whether you get a certification for it or you just digging in those books all the time.
Yeah,
we're always learning.
Amen.
Yeah. Yep. If you go up and ask a coder a question and they just start bopping it right off their head, I said, just tell them thank you and turn around and walk away. Because for me, you never talk to another coder or a physician provider without your book.
Without being able to give the reference. And I agree more, Sharon.
Reference.
I hate being referred to as the expert. Because I feel like the minute I step into an expert role, which I was always told to be an expert, you had to live more than 50 miles away and you had to charge lots of money. That was like the rule. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be that, right? I don't want to be the expert, because then you get these individuals who are what we refer to as experienced non-experts that think they're an expert. Yeah. Like they're experienced, but they think they know it all. They don't have to keep going and looking up. The answer I think we all hate the most is, well, we've always done it that way. That's a no-go, right? You've got to be able to show me in writing, prove to me, because that's what the doctors are going to say, and they do, right? Well, tell me why. Who says? Where's the say I have to do that?
And when I think of this, we've always done it this way. I picture a guinea pig on a wheel. You're never going anywhere. You're just spinning.
I would always tell people when I would give classes and do lecture, and people would come up and ask me about stuff like that and say, well, they had these consultants that said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, and what was their reference? And they were like, what? And I'm like, well, how did they back it up? Well, they just said, I said, okay, well, here's my advice to you. If you ever have a consultant, that comes into your practice and they're just telling you things, but they can't tell you where they got that information from, then that's the wrong consultant. A consultant, and anytime it's their opinion, that's the wrong consultant. It's not about what I think you should do or what, that's so wrong. No, show me the guideline, point to me. If they can't do that, then you don't need to have them in your practice, because then that's the whole cowboy thing that, I don't trust.
The other thing that drives me crazy is when they say, well, Brenda said so. Well, Brenda's not an expert. I won't tell you anything if I don't have a credible piece of evidence to back it up. But I'm just me. I'm just another person. So, and I think none of us are going to put ourselves out there as we know it all. I think we're all the ones that are like, we don't know it all.
And I say all doctors come from Missouri, the show me state. And they have a right to be shown.
Oh, yeah.
They have a right to know that information.
Yeah, it's their tax ID number. They're the ones that are on the line for all that stuff. So, to the next point about the certification issue, what are your thoughts on the both sides of the aisle thing? I had somebody, Holly, no, not Holly. Sorry, I'll get back to Holly. Where'd it go? Shoot, now I lost it. She had said that AHIMA, there it is. I wish I had
was
thought
Holly,
that
yeah.
years ago to plan for future and go ahead and get more certifications sooner. I have my RHIT and CCS with AHIMA, but I've been an outpatient surgery coder for 17 years. I'm new to AAPC and I love it. I'm preparing for the COC. I feel like AHIMA is geared more for inpatient and AAPC more for outpatient. What do y'all think? Or do y'all think that too?
I agree.
That's a rule of thumb that we've all followed. That AHIMA really is the leader for inpatient facility side. And do you need them both? It's up to you. Is it going to benefit? Do you feel benefited by it?
And Brenda,
And
thank
again-
you for clarifying that, because you know my pet peeve of inpatient versus outpatient when there are both in both the facility and the pro-fee world. And we need
Right.
to be very specific in the language that we use, or we wind up not talking the same language to one another
Yes.
and giving incorrect advice.
Yes.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely agree with you.
And on mine, I have credentials on both sides. With AHIMA, I have my CDIP for documentation improvement and my CCSP, but it's the physician side credential from AHIMA, but again, I did it for business reasons when I first got them, because when I would go to a lot of practices are now owned by facilities and hospital systems that have clinics everywhere. So when I would go to a hospital system and want to talk to them about working through and educating physicians at their clinics, they didn't recognize, now this was years ago, I'm sure it's better, but they didn't recognize the AAPC credentials. Not that they thought they were bad, they just didn't know what they were.
Right.
So when I got an AHIMA credential, then it was like, oh, at least they recognized it and knew. So for me, that was why I did them in both organizations. But, you have to temper that with, I've got membership dues in both organizations. I got CEUs in both organizations. It does bring about the other things with it. So once again, willy-nilly just doing everything to do everything, you have to kind of weigh all those factors out. But for me, that's why I got certified with both.
There's some other organizations that are also diving into the credentialing world.
Name
So
us.
we used to say AAPC and AHIMA are the only nationally recognized, and I think, oh my gosh, sorry, I just dropped my phone. I think we may see some differences in that. I know one organization has created tests with a different makeup. It's not a multiple choice. You're not, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but if you're a good test taker, you can get through multiple choice. When you have to find that specific answer, that puts a whole new level of challenge there. So I think we may see more organizations in the future.
Well,
Yep.
and Brenda, absolutely. And there are more than even just these two in play right now. I mean, the majority of the work that I do is in the compliance realm, where HCCA is king.
HCA. Yeah.
So that was the question. I mean, I got invited to speak to several HCCA conferences before I was ever certified by them. But every time I did, the question was, when are you taking your CHC? When are you doing that? And it's like, oh, yeah. So that precipitated a lot of why I did that.
Yep. Alrighty. We are, let's see, I have a lot of thumbs up, a lot of smiley faces and LOLs coming through.
Pam said, we get paid if I do it this way, or the providers that argue when we say we've always done it that way. Well, you can do it that way until somebody sees it that knows it's not right, and then you're going to pay back a lot of money.
Well, and somebody brought up a good Doris Branker. She had posted something when that comment came up. It was on a LinkedIn post by somebody, and she made a very, very good point, and I want to share it. And Doris, thank you for making this point. It was very cool. She said, well, if they say, well, we get paid for it, then, so if by nature they're trying to say, well, if we got paid for it, it's right. So then you have to take the flip side and say, well, then if it gets denied, you must have been wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I know. And that's not right. Right. So you can't have it both ways. If you're going to take it, you got to take all of it. So, that just doesn't hold true.
Yeah, I've had providers say, well, if I use that diagnosis code, am I going to get paid more? I said, no, you're not going to get paid more, but we're going to assure that you keep what you get paid.
Yep.
That's it.
For the documentation supporting. So here's my phrase that I hand out to everybody. The key is to get paid, but the goal is to keep it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, and Sharon, that leads to me why I've done some of the certifications I have, and it's to better understand how it all works. Because I'm pulling out big picture. You can understand how pro-fee works. You can understand how inpatient facility, outpatient facility, risk adjustment, but do you get how they're all cogs in the same rev cycle space and turn each other?
Yep.
Because if you don't understand that, you can't explain that to a physician. And how many physicians worry only about what goes into their own pocket? That's how, I've always been told that's how you get their attention, hit them in the pocketbook. But if you can explain to them that, hey, doc, if your documentation is subpar and you're not documenting the wonderful quality care you are providing, you may also be preventing the facility from having the documentation to justify their revenue. So don't complain next time they don't have that piece of equipment you need. And that's a big piece of it for me.
Yeah. And I think sometimes they get caught up in their templates. If they don't edit their template, it's no good. Their documentation is no good. So, this, like you said, Chandra and Brenda and all, it's a cycle. That guinea pig on a wheel.
Yep. Now I had a couple other questions I wanted to get to, but we are running short on the time we have left. So maybe all of us hens and the baby chick can get together again sometime and do this. This has been so much fun. I love this. So I would like to have each of y'all, if you would, like, what's your best piece of advice for, these people that are out here watching and wanting to, like, how do I do what you do? Or what's your best piece of career advice, or, whatever kind of advice you want to give people, if you would like to give out a piece of advice for everybody. And who would like to start? You want me to go from the Brady Bunch top and do Ruby first?
Yeah, make it easy. Always be open-minded, always be willing to learn. Don't put yourself above anybody. Everybody is on equal ground because somebody always knows something more than you do, even though they might not have the training and education you do. Make sure that you work together as a team.
Wonderful. Brenda?
So my piece of advice is for those that are new to this field, how do I get to do what you do? 37 years, 47 years, 50 years. We didn't start doing this. We learned the whole, as Chandra said, the revenue cycle. We understand how it all works together. And consultant may sound like a dream job, but as we all know, we've put on many thousands and thousands of miles on the road. Hotels are glamorous the first few times, but, and just be patient, because us old hens, at least this old hen, is going to be looking at sunsetting down the road not too far in the future. So we're also out there looking for who's our next rising stars. And Chandra, you used to be that person, but now you're the star, so we got to find new ones.
I know. So, now you're a chick, so we have to branch out a little bit more.
The only other thing I have been personally experiencing is the generational differences. Please, younger people, listen to what we have to share with you. It's a lot of years of knowledge, and you may do it a different way, but at least listen to what's proven and then go with it.
Great. Good. Miss Rita?
So I'd say a couple of things. First of all, don't ever give up. If it's something that you really want to do and are passionate about, keep on trucking, right? Don't give up. Listen, I always say feedback is a gift. So when you're working with people and they're giving you feedback, especially somebody who's mentoring you, take it and accept it and move with it, right? Because they want to see you successful. So sometimes we're always ready to like push back or, be defensive. But, I always tell people my story, right? I feel like I started out as a bull in a china shop, and the way I managed then is not the way I manage today because I took that feedback and I really listened and I wanted to grow. So just remember that if somebody's vested in you, they really want what's right for you and want you to succeed. So, start accepting that feedback and roll with it. And just like Ruby said, it's a team, right? If you're a leader, it doesn't matter. You're part of the team.
Yep.
So no matter how far you go up the ladder, you're still part of the team, and you always have to remember that.
Yeah. Great. Sharon?
Well, I'm going to feed off of what Rita was talking about, networking. You're not in this job alone. You cannot do this job alone. You always need someone to pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got this case. What do you think? And this is where I'm going, because all roads lead to Rome. Everybody may have a different pathway to get there, but you're pretty much at the same answer when you get to the end of the road. The continuation. Like Jerry is saying, will you ever get out of those books? He sees me in the books all the time. And I said, but there's always something more. And you can go back and read it the third time, and maybe on the third time you saw something you didn't see the first time you read it. And then my other professional hint is don't sit next to your husband.
Never a dull moment.
Not in my house.
All right, Chandra, it's your turn.
Oh, how do I follow Miss Sharon? So I have a few thoughts on this because I feel like I'm kind of in that middle generation to Brenda's point.
Yep.
And I have had the benefit of being surrounded by amazing people. Surround yourself with those amazing people. Listen to what they have to say. And it's kind of funny. I was at a presentation. It's probably been I'm going to say 2 years before COVID, because everything is measured in COVID time these days. Yeah. But they had a recruiter there. And the most interesting thing was the recruiter walking around the room asking questions. Okay, so my boomers, what do you think about the newest generation? Right? I'm sorry. Coders eat their young. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We're a little rough on the young, having been one of the young ones. Yeah, that we eat our young until they can prove themselves. And the interesting factoid for me was at that point in time, the majority of new coders were leaving the industry within 2 years. Very, very few were making it beyond 5. And I think the biggest difference was not that, the older generation was hard on the younger generation, or the younger generation didn't want to hear it and didn't have the same work ethic. There are definitely differences across our generations that we all recognize. But it's finding a way to bridge the communication gap and meet one another in a middle ground. Yep. And if we can get there, the wealth of information that the current generation can pass on is just astounding to me. And that's, having been someone, I'll share one little thing is, recently trying to, having people come to me going, hey, I need a coder. Do you know anybody, a younger person that could fit this kind of role? That they've got a little experience, but they don't have the breadth of experience that all of us have. It's hard because the people that pop into my mind are all of, my amazing superstar friends. And I'm like, well, that ain't going to work. The problem is trying to identify who some of those rising stars are. And my other piece of advice, the last thing I'll say is do your research. This is hard and this sounds mean, but I don't mean it this way. Don't go out on Facebook and post, how do I do this?
Yes. Agreed.
Go out, do the research, see what you find and say, this is what I found and how I'm interpreting it. Can somebody help me? Am I understanding it correctly? Because that is one thing that I can tell you as someone who's been there. I always go and look and see, what can I find myself? Don't just throw the question out there, because that's when as we all know, things go downhill very quickly on social media. People can be very rude and very mean. But if you show that you have a vested interest in it too by doing the research in the first place, you're going to step out on a lot better foot with the majority of seasoned professionals that you're going to encounter.
Yeah, I think for people that are looking to kind of step in to our old hen and young chick positions, I think getting involved in whether it be on the AHIMA side, your CSA, or the AAPC side, your local chapter, and usually the local chapters. I know, my ILHIMA from Illinois, that CSA, they're all having their elections now, and they're putting out these notices. It's just like, please, somebody run for a position. They can't get people to want to hold the positions as officers in the chapters and in the associations. And if you want to progress and become more expansive in the field, those are ways to do it. I mean, the time involvement, I started an AAPC chapter, as I'm sure a lot of y'all also did. I started the chapter in Illinois, and so serve a little bit. It's not, the time commitment is not like it's 40 hours a week. You're offering to help, and you're doing some things. Speak at those chapters
forward.
Yeah. And that's how you get the networking and how you get recognition. If there's a piece of something that or you like, and if you want to speak at a national conference for that greater exposure, cut your teeth in the local chapters. At conference, again, I have not spoken at AAPC's national conferences for a few years, but it was, if you did not know your stuff and you went at conference and were spouting things off that you would get eaten alive by those audience members. They were not, they would be like, that's just not correct. And so doing it at the local chapter level, gives you that ability to kind of work some of that stuff out. If you have some kind of issue with something you're saying, you can fact check yourself and, kind of move up in that way and get more comfortable with speaking, but put yourself out there a little bit. You can't, one of the things, again, generationally, as you were, my generation, and ladies, I hope I'll see some agreement. It's when you look at some of the younger generation, and it seems like they want to come out and make $100,000 a year, not work weekends, not do that, and my head immediately goes to, do you know what I sacrificed?
Yep.
To do. And when you think about in their mind, how their mind thinks, sacrifice, instead I put it out when I talk to younger people of invest in yourself, not sacrifice, because their mind doesn't go to that way of thinking, so it's that emotional quotient, that EQ kind of stuff coming into play. And y'all know me, I am not Miss Touchy-feely when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I've spoken on that multiple times. And so I've researched it, and it's that delivery thing, where you have to think about it. So for what we did was like sacrifice, that was just grindstone, nose down. And, you didn't think twice about it. Well, the younger generation, they don't see like where that gets, what the benefit, they need to see that. So I talk more about investing in themselves with taking this course or doing that class, or, and that's how they progress. So I think for us old hens, helping, trying to think in that manner sometimes when we're talking to those newer people, it's just very interesting, that dichotomy of those generation gaps, Let me see if I have some, got a couple amens, and he who listens to advice grows old. Very nice, lady. We've got an aloha from Hawaii too. I thought I'd just throw that out there. Somebody says lady said she stepped up this year because they didn't have volunteers. So she is now the treasurer and the secretary. So thank you, lady. Good job for you. Somebody else, she says, you have inspired me, ladies. I'm diving deeper into the chapter I'm in. Wonderful. And it says, I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I'm always open to learn. Please teach me. See, that's the attitude that at least me, that's what I look for in somebody. If they come and say that to me, ooh, I'll give you everything. You know, I'll do weekend Zooms and spend 2 hours showing you stuff. And, you know, if you put it in, we'll put it in. That's one of the other things, at least with me. And I know with all y'all ladies, you know, you get what you give kind of thing for you younger people. Just remember that
90% of your learning is not going to be.
Nope, Sharon, you're cutting out, doll.
She looks like she's taking a nap.
I was just going to say that 90% of your learning is not going to be while you're on the job. No, I'm moving.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Sharon said 90% of your learning is not going to be on the job.
There we go. Or while the reruns are on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
all right. Well,
can I just say one more thing?
Oh, certainly.
And that is, remember that this is not an I world. And one of the probably, other than we've always done it that way, that's probably my largest bug. My second largest bug is constantly hearing a person talking I. I'm doing this. Come see me do this. I this, I that. It's not an I world. We're here for a reason. We're here to be working together. And you know, I want to, here's me, I want to be able to get from you. And I learn when I have people come to me, when my coders come to me and ask me questions, I really learn from them as well, because I learn from them in terms of, am I approaching how I'm giving them the information correctly? And then I always have encouraged my team to say, if you disagree with me, you have that right. And I want you to say that you disagree with me. So then let's look at it together and let's see what together we both come up with, because we might find out that what you're looking at is really the right way. And I'm just kind of full of smoke. But I want you to be able to do that. But I am also not going to just give you an answer, because when you need to know it the next time, you're not going to have a clue on how to be able to figure it out.
Yep. It's learning how to get there, right?
Right.
Well, ladies, I am. It just like flew by, didn't it?
It did.
And I am. It's just I can't even put into words really how grateful I am to.
We love you, Betty.
We
Thank
love
you
you, Bet.
for putting this
Absolutely.
together.
Thank you for reaching out to me.
Yes. It was a pleasure.
So
We
grateful
love you.
to
It
know
was our
all you
pleasure.
ladies, and it's just been really, really great, and I'm so glad that y'all could join me today.
Thank you.
Excuse me. So, on my next broadcast, I am going to have our For the Love of Revenue Cycle podcast, where we're going to talk about modifiers, which, you know, everybody can learn more and more and more about. So be watching for that notice to come up. And you ladies, I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much. And
Love you.
Next week,
Same to you, Betty.
thank you. And
Betty,
I hope
next
everybody
week on the
enjoyed today.
12th.
Yes, ma'am.
on the 12th of April.
Yes. Let me put up a little there. And let me do it this way, because people always say, I can't see it in there. Miss Sharon and I, Ruby, I'm sorry. Miss Sharon and I are doing our cardiac Cath webinar for congenital anomalies on April 12th, because they changed it this year. And so it's a little different. They're looking at abnormal and normal connections and all kind of junk like that. So Sharon and I have put together a webinar that we will be holding. So I put the link in the chat thing there for everybody. So if you want to go check it out, feel free to do that. If you have questions, just send them on to me. And look forward to seeing everybody that can make that. So ladies, again, I would love to do this again sometime soon. We'll have our round hen party. And when I get cleared to actually be able to go somewhere, we definitely have to, do a house party somewhere. So did y'all see
down.
Judy Wilson's thing with the ladies? Oh no, that was you, Brenda, with the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God, that
gotta
was
try that,
hilarious.
Brenda. We gotta get there.
We get
Yeah.
cool, we'll try it. Or Sharon's.
And everybody said
It's gonna
all
be
the
at my
comments are coming in
house,
with
I hope.
people thanking us. So
Thank
and
you guys for having us.
thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to put in the
Thank
little
you.
song again
Bye,
too. So
everybody.
if y'all can hang on for a minute for me while I do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks everybody.